Captain Dylan Hubbard, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so for those who aren't familiar with the history of Hubbard's Marina, I want to start from the beginning. Your grandfather, Wilson, started in 1928 with 5 rowboats and 40 cane poles for $150. How does a family go from that to what Hubbard's is today?
We're blessed with a great team, and our team of captains and crew and office staff and dock masters and everybody in between, and our marketing team is just we're really blessed to have great people, and it's been a very long road and lots of ups and downs, but we're blessed to continue to be growing today, and it's been a wild. Almost 100 years. We're going on our 100-year anniversary here in just a few years. Looking forward to that. And we've been blessed to be voted the #1 charter boat in the entire country 5 years in a row by USA Today. And we are just cooking with peanut oil. And we do a lot of different styles of fishing. And we're very diversified in the fact that while we're most notably known for our party boats, we also do private charters. We also do island trips, shelling trips, sunset cruises. We have a pirate ship. We do ghost tours. We have a seafood market, a fuel dock, a boutique. We do a lot of different things. Plus, we build boats. We also have a media company. So we are very diversified and blessed to be spread thin.
Yeah, I mean, you started as fishing charters and now you've grown all of these other legs of your business that you just mentioned. How do you
Yep.
decide what's the right fit for your family business and what's not?
Our team, talking with our management team and leaning on the good people around us. And we just opportunity knocks and we try to take advantage of it where it makes sense and where it aligns with our company's culture and kind of the direction that we want to go. And seemingly been blessed to be making the correct decisions.
Your grandfather passed it down to your father, who then passed it to you. Was that just kind of a natural progression of things, or did you really have to earn it before you could call yourself captain?
Oh, you have no idea. And so my grandfather started in 1928 and he ran it for quite a while, but he actually went away to World War II and was part of the B-52s, flying those things around. So my great grandfather actually took over Hubbard's Marina and ran it for a good number of years. So we actually call it a fourth generation company for that reason. But yes, my father purchased the company from the family back in 2004, and I'm currently starting that process with my father and buying the company. But currently, right now, I'm vice president, and I'm working with my father still. But at this point, he's very high level and not involved in day-to-day or operations.
Big shoes to fill still.
Very much so.
Well, you guys are in Johns Pass now in Madeira Beach, but the business used to be in Pass-a-Grille. Is that right?
Yeah, so we started in Paso Grill, which back then was called Hubbard's Pier on 8th Avenue. Now today it's called Mary Pier. But we started back in Paso Grill because back in the day, in the 1920s, there wasn't a bustling beach there. The barrier islands were not really established. So back then, it was really just the Don Cesar. So Hubbard's Marina and the Don Cesar actually started in the same year, 1928. So Gulfport on the mainland was the hub, and everybody went to Gulfport, and then people would be transported out by boat to Paso Grill. So Paso Grill was really the only thing happening on the barrier islands, and that was the destination. So that's why we started in Paso Grill. But fast forward to the 60s and 70s, they started building these bridges, and the Bayway Bridge construction really changed the way the beaches flowed. And so all of a sudden, people would come onto the beach and immediately take a right and head north. They weren't going to Paso Grill anymore. And at the time, Paso Grill was becoming very residential, and they actually started talking about putting a gate up and making it residential only. So my grandfather saw the writing on the wall, and even though he was in his late 60s, almost into his 70s, he decided to uproot his entire business and move to Johns Pass. And thankfully he did, because today Johns Pass is one of the #1 tourist destinations in the region. And and we are blessed to have just a bustling tourism drive market that visits our business. So the people we can't attract online and book already, they happen to walk by. So we're definitely blessed to be in the right location and have a visionary founder who saw that and kind of saw the writing on the wall and chose to come here to Johns Pass. And he worked with the city to establish and develop a boardwalk. So we have a beautiful boardwalk that runs the length of Johns Pass, and that's obviously a big tourist destination and draw. And then also he was one of the founders of our county's tourist development council and committee, and our TDC is responsible for managing the bed tax that is collected by our hotels, and uses that to not only do capital projects but also advertise our region. And my father served on that tourist development committee, and now today I'm blessed to continue that tradition. So we work closely with the county and our local CMO, CBB, DMO, to advertise not only our business, but also the region and continue to drive tourism.
Yeah, back in 2024, you guys got hit pretty hard, back to back. I believe it was Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. I know that it really devastated that area. What did that do to your business, and how did you guys kind of rebuild from that?
So Hurricane Helene was the fourth time in a matter of a year and a half that we got flooded. The previous three times it was a foot, 2 foot, 3 foot of water. It wasn't anything substantial, but Helene was 9 feet of water. Our entire main office was completely underwater, and our entire main dock was destroyed. We lost a ton of infrastructure and inventory and product. But we were very blessed. Our boats survived the storm, and the main profit centers survived the storm, and our people survived the storm. And again, so blessed to have such a great team and such hardworking, dedicated individuals. We actually were back open and operating and running trips 5 days after Hurricane Helene. And while we had 9 foot of water and so much loss and so much destruction, and we rebuilt our entire dock in 2 days. It was very impressive. And then as we're finishing rebuilding and getting back open and celebrating that we're running trips again, here comes the news that a Category 5 hurricane is coming right at us again. And it was pretty numbing and just wild situation to go through. But looking back, we're actually kind of blessed that we got hit with a second major hurricane. And the reason why I say that is we actually had a lot more state and federal resources funneled into our area and into our county thanks to that second storm, because no one could believe that an area could get hit with 2 major hurricanes so close together. We're talking I think they were 10 or 12 days apart. So because of that, we actually had Helene caused so much damage, but it was a flood event. That storm was 100 miles off our coast. And so we mainly got floodwaters. We didn't have crazy wind. We didn't have tornadoes. We didn't have typical hurricane impacts. So what was kind of funny, the day after Helene, the coast was flooded out and destroyed. But if you went 2 miles east into Main City, St. Pete, it was a sunny blue sky day. They had 30-mile-an-hour winds. It was no big deal. So to them, they were like, what hurricane? But if you went onto the beaches, we were under water and completely destroyed and devastated. So it was really challenging. We had all this stuff to clean up. We had these huge piles of trash. We had sand everywhere and so much destruction. And then all of a sudden, here comes this second storm. And this second storm was going to hit us directly. So we were going to get a ton of wind. So that was a major concern. We have these huge piles of debris and trash from the flood event. And now here comes 120, 140 mile an hour winds. And so the state and the feds funneled so much logistics and cleanup to our area. We actually had the National Guard and the Marines and like the U.S. military here with these huge vehicles, and FHP, Florida Highway Patrol, was lights and sirens escorting these caravans and convoys of military people that were just driving down the street, picking stuff up, cleaning the area, and then going to the dump. And at one point, the county closed the dump and shut it down. They're like, hey, we're only working during the day. The governor sent the U.S. military to invade the dump, and they actually cut down the fences and worked 24 hours a day in those days, in that short period of time, but between Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. So because of that, we had so much support and backup from the state and feds. We were able to get, I mean, behind Hurricane Milton, which was so severe and so windy, it knocked out our power infrastructure to the county and our internet. So behind Hurricane Helene, we had 9 foot of water and all this destruction. We actually opened 5 days after that storm. It took us almost 10 days to reopen behind Hurricane Milton. We didn't have more damage, but we didn't have power and internet anywhere in the county, really the whole region. So it was kind of an interesting set of events and very difficult to navigate. But again, we have a great team, and we just put one foot in front of the other. And how do you eat an elephant other than just one bite at a time? And that's what we did. And we bounced back really, really quickly and had a really good 2025, despite totally being destroyed at the end of 2024.
Well, one thing about Floridians is they are resilient. I mean, we've seen it time and time again, the ability for the community to come together and rebuild after these catastrophic storms. It's really, really impressive.
And that was a beautiful part behind that storm, just the community coming together. I'll never forget that storm hit on Thursday night. Friday morning at 6 a.m., I left my house. Luckily, I live nice and high in inland Pinellas County. And I left my house and navigated to the coast. Luckily, I have a very large vehicle, and got to the coast and got on a small boat with some of our captains and crew and navigated into Johns Pass. We were the first boat out there. No one was out there. No fire, no EMS, no emergency folks. It was just us, and we were the first ones before daylight. And it was like a scene out of a movie. People on the seawalls crying, waving, screaming, begging us to come help them. And it was just we were just trying to go to the business and evaluate what happened and check on our boats. And it was just, it was very, very, it gives me the chills to think about still going into the past, seeing all that destruction, all that just terror, and then driving by these homes and people hadn't left and then got trapped in their homes. And now floodwaters had receded and they're out in the seawalls crying that they had lost everything. And then they're trying to get off the island and there's no way off the island. So we ended up, what was supposed to be like a search and find out what we needed to do and what got damaged turned into a rescue mission. And then everybody that had boats ended up doing it. It was very interesting. It was cool to watch the community come together, the fishing community specifically, and deploy our fishing vessels and turn them into rescuing vessels. And it was, I mean, we didn't have any support that first 24 hours or so. We were actually actively trying to be stopped. The police were trying to shut us down because there was so much damage and stuff in the waterways and floating debris that they didn't want people just out there on their boats, but they couldn't stop us. And we were essentially pirates for a week, shuttling people and supplies and goods to and from the barrier islands, and got our business back open in 5 days. And the islands didn't actually even open up until 4 days. So by the time the emergency vehicles had cleared the roadways and said, all right, the barrier islands are safe to return to, we were already ready to open our doors and accept people onto our boats. So it was pretty wild.
Did you use your pirate ship to do that? 'Cause that would be
At the time, we didn't own a pirate ship, so we actually purchased the pirate ship, another dolphin boat, and a shark boat at the end of 2025 in November. And the reason why is that business got hit so hard from the hurricane, they weren't able. They didn't. I don't know. but I can't speak to it specifically, but
Sure.
they didn't bounce back like we did. And I think that 100% has to do with the resiliency of our team and just the dedication of our team because man, we put some effort in, and it was amazing to see it bounce back. I mean, to me, as a business owner, waking up that next day, seeing the devastation and the destruction, it's like, what do you do? And all I could do is think about at the time we had 84 staff members, and 15 of them had lost everything, lost their homes, lost their vehicles, everything they owned. And if I had just sat there and waited and not got to work, those people would not only have lost their homes and their vehicles and everything they own, they would have also lost their jobs and not had income. So to me, it was imperative to open up as quickly as humanly possible, so that way we could start giving revenue sources back to our Hubbard's Marina family. And that's kind of what the focus was. And then we also did some cool things and some GoFundMe's and stuff like that. We were actually able to raise almost 75 grand to help those staff members who had lost everything. So it was really cool to see the community come together and support so many people that had so much loss.
That's incredible. Well, you have a large crew. Obviously, you guys do a lot of things, and we've been kind of in the weeds. But I do want to talk about fishing. Florida, the state water line in the Gulf sits 9 miles out, which is
Yep.
farther, I think, than almost anywhere else in the country, I believe. When
Mhm.
you're running a boat, how much does that line actually shape the trip? Like how far you go, what you're targeting, how long you're out?
For us, we don't even look at or think about that line because we're federally permitted and we operate in the EEZ or exclusive economic zone. So we um, don't bother with the line. And 99.9% of the time we fish beyond the line because we're focused on those deep water offshore trips. And our focus fishing wise is we focus offshore and near shore, but we also focus on larger groups. So even our private charter boats are 7 or more passengers. And that's kind of our specialty is taking people out deep and far from shore and getting people hooked on fishing. We do the near shore stuff and the family fun 5 hour half day, but that's focused on smaller fish, what we affectionately call gray snapper, which is a funny story we should talk about, but it's actually called a white grunt or a Key West grunt. And that is what we take the most people out to do because that's a bigger boat and families in any age or level experienced angler can go out there and do it. This morning we had a 3-month-old going out with his mom and dad to do some fishing on the 5 hour. So it's a family fun event, but it's smaller fish. And then we do all the way up to a 44-hour trip where it's specialty anglers, advanced anglers, and we're going out there 70 to 100 miles and fishing for 25 hours straight. So we do everything from the short stuff, 9 to 12 miles, 30 to 50 foot, all the way out to 70 to 100 miles, up to 250 foot. So, and everything in between as well. So fishing is definitely our focus and kind of our biggest market segment and biggest business focus. But we have grown the other side of it, the pleasure cruise side of it, as we affectionately call it, the dolphin tours, the island trips, the pirate ships, the now seafood market, fuel dock, and all the other stuff as well. So we kind of I have to manage that balance of, hey, I like to fish, and that's kind of my passion, but also have to focus on all these other things as well.
I'm glad you mentioned grunts, because if
Great
anybody
snap.
out there has never caught grunts or has never gone fishing for grunts, they are delicious, and they don't get like they're not as glamorous as like red snapper and grouper and the other things that you fish for out there in the Gulf, but they grunts rule. Justice for grunts.
That word makes me cringe. So a funny story. So my grandfather, back in the day, prior to 1988, I believe, it was legal to sell recreationally caught fish. So a big part of our business was sending people out to fish, and when that boat came back, any fish that people didn't want to keep or potentially would sell, they would sell back to my grandfather. So you'd pay to get on the boat, go out there to go fish, you bring your fish back, and then we'd be willing to buy it back from you, the fish you caught. And then we'd sell them. And people walking down the boardwalk would come down and buy that fresh caught fish. And no one wanted to buy a grunt. They always wanted to buy the snapper or the grouper, and the grunts kind of got passed over. So my grandfather, being the smart businessman and marketing genius that he decided to call them gray snapper one day when he sold out of the snapper and grouper early. And people came down and bought them, and they loved them so much they came back the next day and passed the grouper and snapper to try to ask for those white grunts or gray snapper. And so from then that point forward, it was always gray snapper at Hubbard's Marina, and it was beat into our brains, in my brain growing up, that they're not a grunt, it's a gray snapper. My grandfather actually used to fire people who would not conform and call them gray snapper. And still to this day, I jokingly will get on my crew members when I hear them call them grunts, because that's the thing, is the perception is 99% of it, right? And if a tourist hears the word grunt, they're like, but if you call them a gray snapper, they're willing to try it. And once they try it, like you said, they're such a good eating fish, and they don't get enough credit. And we have a restaurant next door, our family's restaurant, the Friendly Fisherman, that offers to cook up your fresh catch. So it's really cool to see the tourists from Ohio or Wisconsin or Michigan or Indiana or anywhere come down and experience fishing as a family for the first time, catch some of those good eating gray snapper or white grunts, and then take them next door to the restaurant and try that fresh caught fish. And eat that fish that was just swimming an hour before. And man, I can't tell you how many people whose lives have been changed and altered getting hooked on that seafood. And then people all the time give us a lot of heat and a lot of hate, if you could say, about like, oh, it's a grunt, it's not a gray snapper, that's bait. And I get it. It is bait. We do use them as bait on our 39-hour trips. We have a lot of our 39 and 44-hour guests that will come out on our trips the day before or the morning of to catch those gray snapper or white grunts. And they take them offshore and fish with them on our 39-hour trips. So I get it. They are bait, but they're also really good to eat. And people are like, well, you're lying. We're not lying. I've said through this whole video that they're also white grunts, and we always mention that and educate people too. But we focus on the gray snapper name to try to, again, get people to try it. And people are like, oh, you're lying. You're misleading people. But it's not everywhere we mention the white grunt. And then also, it's funny to me because how many people have heard of a Chilean sea bass? And if you go to a restaurant and you try a Chilean sea bass, it's really good. And it's very expensive. It's like $30+ at most restaurants. The actual name for a Chilean sea bass is a Patagonian toothfish. And if you Google a Patagonian toothfish and see that image, you'll never, ever eat Chilean sea bass ever again, because it's the ugliest, slimiest, most disgusting looking fish you've ever seen in your life. And we've been duped. And no one ever talks about that. Like, I can't believe this restaurant's calling it Chilean sea bass. It's actually a Patagonian toothfish. Like we get online where it's like, oh, why would you call it a gray snapper? It's a white grunt. So it's always funny to me. And we do that all the time in fisheries. Like, for example, we catch what's called a razorfish. And everybody calls it a razorfish. It's commonly called a razorfish, but in reality, scientifically, it's called a squirrelfish. And then we also catch sand perch that everybody calls a squirrelfish. So it's always funny to me. And even mangrove snapper, here we call them mangrove snapper, or even goozers if they get really big. But if you go to the Panhandle, they call that a black snapper. Same thing with cobia. You go to the Northern Gulf, they call them a ling, not a cobia. And so we see that a lot in fisheries, fish being called other things. And so I always get a chuckle when people get all worked up about us calling white grunts gray snapper.
Hey, it's all about the marketing. I'm gonna start using that. I'm definitely gonna start using that. I had the last deep sea charter I went on was out of Marathon, freezing cold, by the way. It was in November, it was pouring down rain. I've never been so cold in my life. And I had to just keep fishing. My mom was all cuddled in the corner, and I was like, if I stop fishing, I will die. And so
Ooh.
I just kept on casting. And I think I caught like 20 something grunts that day. Sorry, gray snapper that day. And we brought them back and found a restaurant that cooks them up. And the whole family ate good, and everybody discovered that like, wow, these are actually really great. We're gonna start looking for these now.
Yeah, I've heard them, other charter boats call them a litany of different names. I've heard Imperial Snapper is a funny one that I've heard, and Key West Grunts and a lot of different things, Key West Snapper. But here at Hubbard's Marina, there'll always be Gray Snapper.
All right. Well, you mentioned that you're able to kind of ignore that state line because of how you're licensed, but regulation wise, there's definitely a difference between, fishing as a private angler and running a for hire trip. What do you think people should know about that, and how does that kind of play into their decision to go out by themselves or to hire a charter?
Yeah, I mean, we don't ignore the line in a sense. We just don't have to pay attention to it because we're federally permitted and federally licensed. We have to abide by whatever's more strict. So 99.9% of the time, that's federal regulation. So it doesn't matter where we're fishing, we're abiding by those federal regulations because it's more strict. But for private anglers, I was talking to a guy yesterday. I'm the president of our Florida Guides Association. I was talking to an angler, a charter captain out of Steenhatchee area, and he said, "Yeah, I don't do that offshore stuff because you have to have an accountant, a lawyer, and a law enforcement officer on your boat with you to know what's legal and not legal, and where you can fish and where you can't fish." And it is very technical. So, I mean, I don't think we have enough time in this podcast to dive in the intricacies of federal versus state and all the different management areas. But it essentially, for me, private anglers, the best tool you have is called the Fish Rules app. And the Fish Rules app actually has agreements with FWC, with the Gulf Council, with the South Atlantic Council, and basically they host and house the fishing regulations, and they use a GPS. So you could pull up the GPS, or you could pull up this app if you're within cell range, and it's going to tell you based on where you're standing what the regulations are. So that's extremely helpful to anglers, and it has photo identification and all that good stuff too. So that's helpful. And then if you're going offshore into federal waters, you can look up the regulations and basically load the app. And then even when you're offshore, you can still look back and identify and kind of reference those regulations. So the Fish Rules app is definitely a tool that I would suggest and kind of endorse as your best resource. People all the time call me and they're like, "Well, I checked the FWC website and it says this." That doesn't work because you have to know if you're on a state licensed or a federally licensed vessel, where you're fishing, when you're fishing. And a lot of times, a lot of that stuff you can Google can be outdated as well. So Fish Rules app is helpful in that sense. And then also the difference between federally permitted and state permitted or private can be totally different as well.
Who makes the rules? Is there like some sort of fishing czar who hands these down, or do people like actual citizens have a say in how these rules get made?
Depends on who you ask. For me, I am blessed and honored and also cursed to be heavily involved in fisheries management and science. I mentioned I'm the president of our Florida Guides Association. I also am vice president of our Charter Fishermen's Association, which is a Gulf-wide, federally permitted, federally focused charter fishing association. And I attend 99.9% of all the federal meetings that happen in the Gulf, around the Gulf, 5 Gulf states. I attend most of our state meetings, FWC, and the state manages that 9 miles. And also the state has some federal water stuff too. But the federal management side of it is done by the Gulf Council. So to answer your question, FWC manages state waters and makes regulations in those state waters. The Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America Fishery Management Council handles regulations in the Gulf. And there's 8 management councils across the U.S., and basically federal regulations are done through MSA, the Magnuson-Stevens Act, which was enacted in 1976, and the first regulations in the Gulf were done in 1988 in Refish Amendment 1. And so in the Gulf, the Gulf Council is made up of 17 voting members, and those members are the ones who make the regulations for the Gulf. And it's a very interesting process. And to your earlier point, citizens 100% can get involved and have a say and really have an influence, in my opinion. A lot of people are going to be like, no. And I was that way too. Prior to 2016, I had a pretty tight tinfoil hat on, and I was an outsider looking at this federal system as, how can this happen? This doesn't make any sense. And in 2016, had a tough conversation with a close friend who encouraged me to get more involved and to take an active role in fisheries management and science. And I went through this marine recreational education program. It's called MREP. And it was very, 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 very helpful. And it really opened my eyes and connected me with different folks at fisheries science and management, and also really empowered me to attend these meetings and feel like I understood what was happening, and then also helped me network in that arena. And I became involved with the Marine Recreational Education Program, and actually was our Southeast Regional Program Principal in charge of representing fishermen and recreational anglers in the Southeast region, not only the Gulf, but the South Atlantic and the Caribbean, at our national level Marine Recreational Education Program as well. But just last year, I stepped down after 10 years. It was a little too much to balance that and my business as well. But I'm still heavily involved in fisheries science and management, and attending those Gulf Council meetings. I'm going to Biloxi, Mississippi in a few weeks for our Gulf Council meeting in August. And I serve on the Gulf Council's advisory panels. I'm the Reef Fish chair. I'm the data collection chair, and I am also serving as chair for our outreach and education technical committee as well. So I serve on 3 different advisory panels for the Gulf Council, and I attend the meetings that happen around the 5 Gulf states. And I have seen personally the impact that people can have, because I was attending these meetings talking about how we have a problem with some illegal charter operations, and I was really kind of, maybe in an uninformed way, throwing a lot of shade at the lack of, or the problems with, enforcement around the Gulf. And that didn't make the enforcement people very happy. So apparently, unbeknownst to me, they took a closer look at my business and how we operate. And they actually, I got approached by NOAA Office of Law Enforcement, and was told that the way we operate our business is illegal and we have to stop. And it took me about 85 days to change federal regulations and alter the course of federal management to make sure that the way we had prosecuted our fishery is legal and remained legal. So, I mean, it was a really eye-opening thing for me to show me how important it is to be attending these meetings and be a part of the conversation, because as we like to jokingly say, if you're not in the room, you're on the menu. And so for me, being in the room and being a part of the conversation is very important to not only my personal business, but also to recreational fishermen as a whole. And I think, to me, I view it as a responsibility that I have to be blessed with the opportunity to make a living and have take part in this industry. I feel it's my duty to represent our recreational fishery and our federal for-hire fleet at these meetings, and give back to the resource and also the community that supports us and allows us to make that living and lifestyle. So I enjoy it. It's very time consuming and mind numbing and boring. And people always ask me after I come home from a week long meeting, like, what happened? Nothing. This is the federal government. It is excruciatingly slow when you want it to be. But when you don't want it to be, like when the federal officer tells you that your business is illegal and you have to stop operating your trips, it can be super fast. But luckily, being involved, knowing those right people, I was able to introduce a proposed regulation and get it passed in just a single meeting. So it's it's a pretty wild and very confusing thing. But in the Gulf, there's 17 voting members, and there's one person from our Gulf, from our Southeast Regional Office of NOAA Fisheries. That's the regional administrator. So that's one of 17. Then 5 people from each Gulf state. That's state, like basically a state employee. So each Gulf state is represented by that state employee, and then the regional administrator. So that's 6 of 17. The remaining 11 are different appointees from each state. So the state of Florida actually has the most members on the Gulf Council. We have 4 people, our state employee, and then we have 3 people, 1 science, 1 commercial, and 1 for hire. And then Alabama only has 2, smaller state, same with Mississippi. Louisiana has 3, Texas has 3, and basically it's split up like that. And it's an interesting political ball game for sure, but it's a lot more political than a lot of people realize. And politics play a big part in how regulations kind of come to be or don't come to be. So it's definitely taught me a lot, and unfortunately kind of forced me in a little bit more of a political road than I anticipated.
Well, you stay booked and busy. It probably feels good to be actually out doing the fishing and guiding part of your job after you've been sitting in
100%.
meetings all week.
100%. And I definitely, people ask all the time, like, oh, do you still get to go fishing? And I do, and I make time for it. And I definitely get out on the water as much as I can. But I'm blessed to be in a position where the more time I spend in the business, operating the business, focused on managing and growing the business, we can be more successful as a team. So I know my place on the bus, as they say, is trying to focus on that growth and fostering basically a smooth and attractive operations. Whereas if I spent my time offshore, that's definitely where I would rather be and enjoy a lot more. But I definitely wouldn't be in the position we are today if I did that all the time.
You're a fisherman, so I know you have stories. Does anything stand out to you as like one of the wildest things that you've ever seen out on one of your boats?
Man, we've found dead bodies. We've come across boats on fire. We've saved people. We've caught big fish, big sharks, turtles. I mean, we've seen it all over the course of our nearly 100-year history. And my grandfather used to run across great whites. My father has run across orcas. We saw, excuse me. We saw a pilot whale, a right whale recently. We encounter a lot of different things, but I would say definitely the wildlife interactions are the most unique. When we see these big, unique turtles, we came across a really big leatherback turtle, one of the biggest that I had ever seen. It was pretty cool. We see a lot of different interesting things, whale, sharks, stuff like that, and catch cool fish and big fish and just have a good time doing it. And for me, the people part of it, I mean, it's really cool to see a family come out and the kids playing on his iPad, just totally focused on the screen. And then all of a sudden we start fishing and see their face light up when they catch that first fish. And now all of a sudden, all they can talk about is fishing, and they want to go back out before you even get back to the dock. They're talking about their next trip. And then watching those folks go over to the restaurant, and the kid's like, oh, I don't like seafood. And they order the chicken nuggets. And then all of a sudden you go back over there and they've tried a bite of fish for the first time, and now they're like, this is way better than the chicken nuggets. And now all of a sudden they're not only hooked on fishing, but they're hooked on seafood as well. So it's pretty cool to see, and creating those memories. And those we're blessed with such a long history, like I said, almost 100 years. So we have multiple families where the grandfather or great grandfather started fishing back in the day, and then the grandfather, and then the father, and now the son. And we see it all the time, 3 and 4 generations of family coming out fishing with us, and they come out together, and it's really special.
You just casually breezed by the dead body thing. I hope that's not something that happens too often out there.
Not too often, but it's happened more than once.
Okay, well, we'll leave that there then. Hubbard's motto is if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too busy. Where did that start?
My grandfather, again, my grandfather, marketing genius. So it's if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy. Back in the day, it used to be if you're too damn busy, but we've watered that down a little bit over the years. Um, And my grandfather started that motto. He used to do a TV show every day on what was then Big 13. Nowadays, it's Fox 13, our local Fox station. And Monday through Friday, he would wake up at 3:30, 4 a.m. and drive to the station. And he would do a fishing segment every morning, Monday through Friday, for years. For years, he did it. And then he finally gave up and focused on the business and took a step back and slowed down a little bit. But that was his big thing, and that was his motto that he started and ended the show with. And today we're blessed. I'm blessed to be able to continue that tradition. Back in 2019, Fox 13 was down here in Johns Pass doing a story about Johns Pass, and it was like a hometown segment talking about the cool things around the region. And I was talking to the executive producer and Russell Rhodes, who's one of the anchors. And Russell has been at Fox 13 for coming up, I think, like 27, almost 30 years. And so his first day at then Big 13, he walked in and met my grandfather, and they were close friends and talked a lot. And my grandfather stopped doing the news segments just a few months after Russell started. So he had a lot of fond memories. So back in 2019, Russell and I are talking about my grandfather and swapping stories. And Russell just nonchalantly was like, "We should do something like that again." And in my back of my head, I'm like screaming, "Yes, please!" And luckily got the right business cards and gently kept reminding them. And that was February of 2019. And by May of 2019, I got a random phone call right before Memorial Day, and they were like, "Hey, what are you doing Friday morning?" It's like, "Whatever you want me to do." And they came down and we filmed a live segment, and I wasn't prepared for live TV, but made it happen, and it was a hit. And we've done it every Friday since. And now we record segments that play through the weekend too. And thankfully, due to technology, I don't have to drive to the station. They come to me, and we can do a live remote right from Johns Pass. And that has been huge, obviously, for our business. To do 5 minutes on a Friday morning and 4 minutes on a Saturday morning that they play throughout the whole day Saturday. And it's been huge for our industry too, getting the Tampa Bay area and the news stations talking about fishing again. And we started that in 2019. Now, fast forward to 2026, there is a fishing segment on every single one of our Bay Area news stations. And I'm not taking any credit for that, but it's cool to see Fox did this and it had so much success that other news stations have emulated that. And I think it's Channel 8, one of their news anchors, Amanda Hawley, she actually has like a 15-minute show now, all focused on fishing. So it's really cool to see fishing making it back to our news, our regional news, and having such a focus, and obviously being sought after from a viewership standpoint, or they wouldn't keep doing it and expanding it.
If your grandpa could see his legacy now, what do you think he'd say?
I hope he would be happy. I don't know. We definitely work every day, and that's the cool part of my job. Is obviously I love what I do, and I'm sure that comes across a little bit, but it's a cool job, and I like talking to people. I like marketing, and I like growing the business and having these challenges and working with people. And blessed to have such a great team to make us successful. But it's also really cool to have that layer of it's a family business. I'm fourth generation, and not only am I working, but also it's that legacy. So it's just an added layer of maybe responsibility or honor or whatever blessing, whatever you want to call it, that really makes it even that much more special.
Well, Dylan, this has been really fun. Anything new coming up at Hubbard's that we should be looking out for?
Yes. So we're launching a new ghost tour. We just had a soft opening last week. Grand opening's coming up. We have a grand opening of our Bloody Mary Mimosa breakfast cruise that starts in August. We are launching our Tampa Bay service or Tampa Bay ferry service. We have a 150 passenger and a 250 passenger boat coming to Tampa Bay, hopefully by the end of this year. And then also we're expanding our media company, and we just hired on a new chief brand and experience officer who's going to help grow the business even more. And yeah, we just bought a pirate ship and a dolphin cruise, and we're excited. It's going to be a good year.
Awesome. Well, I'll be there in November, so count me in for ghosts and mimosas at the same time.
Love it. We'll see you then.
All right, there you go. Hubbard's Marina, #1 charter in America, 5 years running. If you're in Madeira Beach area and you want to go fishing, shelling, sunset cruising, or pirate shipping, this is your guy.
Yeah,
Dylan, thanks so much for being here.
anytime. And don't forget, Amber, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy.
Amen.